Welcome to Talking Out Your Glass. I'm Sean Wagner. Austin Stern's Little Monsters series is a body of work where cartoon-like creatures interact with physical manifestations of their own anxieties. These worries which assail the monsters, gleefully weighing down their minds and bodies, are simultaneously sinister and comical representations of our daily setbacks and stumbling blocks. By approaching this subject matter from a playful perspective, the viewer is invited to find the humor in the small battles we fight daily to find positivity, peace, and happiness. States Stern, I am inspired by the bright and highly saturated colors found in the toys and cartoons of my childhood and the patterns found in both nature and the world of fashion. My current work explores interpersonal relationships and mental health, the ways in which we support each other, take care of ourselves, and how we cope with various anxieties and fears are all concepts my work explores through a cheerful lens of brightly colored, playful creatures. Blowing glass since the age of 14, Stern attended high school in Palo Alto, California. After earning a degree in glass blowing from Emporia State University in Kansas, the artist moved to Seattle to develop his own artistic practice in the vibrant glass-blowing community of the Pacific Northwest. Stern exhibits his work nationally and internationally and has been a resident artist and instructor in the United States, Thailand, and Sweden. His work is in private collections around the world and in the permanent collections of the Corning Museum of Glass, the Fort Wayne Museum of Art, the Bangkok Glass Company, and the Samchuk City Public Art Collection in South Korea. He was selected as one of 100 artists included in New Glass Now, a Corning Museum of Glass global survey of contemporary glass that traveled to the Renwick Gallery of the Smithsonian Art Museum, and he participated in a residency at the CMOG Studio in 2022. Many thanks to the sponsors of this episode of Talking Out Your Glass, Kugler Colors, the Art Alliance for Contemporary Glass, and Wet Dog Glass. To find out more about our sponsors, visit talkingoutyourglass.com. Click on Episodes, Season 10, and Austin Stern. Austin Stern, thank you so much for joining me on Talking Out Your Glass podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, Sean.
You were born in Palo Alto, California. How would you describe your growing up years there? When and how did your interest in the arts begin?
So growing up in Palo Alto was really interesting because it's honestly just a place of like pretty extreme privilege, and there were a lot of opportunities that I had access to that I think your average kid didn't have, especially in terms of like access to the arts. So I was always like making stuff with my hands, and drawing and painting. Like pottery was something that I did a lot as a little kid. Legos, I had like so many Legos. So I think I was always a creative kid, and my mom really was super encouraging and supportive of that. Like she saw my interest in creativity and making stuff, and she just signed me up for every art class that she could get me into. So I feel really lucky to have had from both of my parents like a lot of support and encouragement for that. But yeah, I have pictures of like crazy little drawings I did when I was like 4 years old.
Do you have some you can show us?
Not on me, unfortunately, but yeah, those are in the family storage unit someplace.
Those might make a good tattoo someday.
There's a drawing of a whale that I'm thinking of right now that yeah, maybe one day.
Yeah. Well, you earned a degree in glassblowing from Emporia State University in Kansas. Talk a bit about that program and why you chose it.
Yeah, so I started blowing glass when I was in high school. One of the things that I think makes Palo Alto kind of a unique place is that the high school ceramics teacher had a degree in glass from RISD, and he spoke with the school and said, "Hey, there's this space in the art building that's not being used. If I build a hot shop and fund it, can I offer glass blowing to the students?" And so the school said sure, and he came up with a plan and executed that plan. And so that was my first point of contact with glass when I was 14, and I fell in love with it. But I was also like a pretty I was a terrible student, to be honest, and I didn't really like fit into the traditional school system. So I had really bad grades. I didn't have a lot of like college options, to be honest, and I almost didn't go to college. But my high school ceramics and glass teacher, I think he understood what I needed more than I did at the time. And so he actually connected me with Emporia State because he's friends with the people that were running that program at the time, Patrick Martin and Roberta Eichenberg. And he suggested that I go and take a look. And it seemed really appealing to me. It's Emporia is a pretty small town in eastern Kansas, and I think at that time in my life, I needed less distractions. So when I checked it out, I saw, oh, this looks like a place where I can really focus on blowing glass, and and it's a school that I can get into. So I went for it. And honestly, looking back, I think the decision to move from the Bay Area to small town Kansas essentially was probably one of the better choices I've made in my life because it gave me a lot of perspective on what like normal people's lives were like. And I met some of the kindest, most down to earth people who continue to be dear friends of mine in that program. And yeah, I was able to really spend a lot of time blowing glass and figure out, what aspects of that process really matter to me, how to like refine my voice as an artist. And yeah, so I was in Kansas for 3 years before I came to Seattle, and I think it was like a really formative time for me.
Well, you moved to Seattle in 2013. What inspired you to do that, and what were your early days like there?
Well, so from the beginning of my glass blowing journey, I knew that I wanted to be like really good at blowing glass. I wanted to learn as much as I possibly could from anybody who had anything that could anybody who could teach me something. I was like all ears. Um, so for me, from finishing my undergrad, Seattle seemed like the next obvious choice in terms of gaining more skill, gaining more creative ability to like express the ideas that I had. And so it felt like a very natural progression to me, especially because in 2012, I went to Pilchuck for my first time. And like a lot of people in glass, like that was really eye-opening for me. And I saw this wonderful community that was full of really talented people who were really encouraging and willing to share. And so I saw that and I said, holy crap, like there's nothing else that I want to do besides move to Seattle and like find where I fit into that scene. So so yeah, I finished my undergrad and then I moved to Seattle and the early days were they were pretty interesting because it was a lot of running around assisting people. I didn't make a ton of my own artwork for some time initially. I was doing like the sort of like excuse me the kind of like workshop thing where you would do like 4 hour lessons in like downtown Seattle at a glass studio there, just trying to make money and really focused on trying to find artists who I admired and then finding a way to be like on their team to help them make their work. And so that was how I initially met and started to work for Martin Blank, who's
Love
a
Martin.
Martin is a wonderful human,
Yep.
incredible artist, and a really inspiring leader. One of the things I learned from Martin was like he has this amazing ability to somehow take a huge team of like 7 to 8 to 9, sometimes 10 people, and get everybody on the same page, working towards the same goal in a way where everybody feels like he knows how to bring the best out of people. And so being part of his team was a huge honor, and being able to help him make some of his work was just like, I mean, one, it was incredibly fun, and two, I learned a ton. So he was one of the first people who I was like part of the team, and it felt really great to be involved in that.
So, what was involved in establishing your own practice? What were the challenges?
You know, that's a really good question because one of the challenges was like deciding what I wanted to make, what I felt was worth making that would speak to my, in Seattle, there's so many people who blow glass at a really high level. And if you go into it thinking like, oh, I want to make the best bowl or something like that, like it's really difficult to stand out in a place where the sort of ambient skill level is just so high. So one of the things that I got to thinking about pretty soon was like, what can I make that's like me, that isn't just another really nice object, but like, my voice. Um what speaks to my experience. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about what that might look like. And then there was also like the economic challenges of like, the reality is that blowing glass is expensive. And when you're first getting established in a place like Seattle, there's not a lot of like, or at least my experience was I didn't have a lot of like extra money to throw around. So one challenge was figuring out what I wanted to make. Another challenge was finding the time and the money to be able to go into the studio to actually make that. And so, there was a lot of like kind of trade time agreements where I would help somebody make stuff and then they would help me make stuff. And that way I didn't have to spend any money. So I could sort of rough out some ideas. And then once I started feeling a little bit more secure financially, then I could actually rent time at Pratt Fine Arts Center and start to express myself a little bit.
So you mentioned Martin and things like Pratt. What are some of the other important glass related experiences you've had in Seattle? People you've worked with or opportunities that have come your way just from being there in such a glass mecca?
Yeah, yeah, and it really is a glass mecca, and there's been so many people. Like, I mean, I feel really fortunate to be in a position now where, to some degree or another, people listen to what I have to say about glass, and I always try really hard to remember that like I did not get to where I am by myself. So I had tons of mentors and people who gave me artistic advice and business advice and people who really just were extremely patient and willing to answer my questions or just to offer me a hand. Some of those people include Nancy Callan as somebody who I worked for a number of years, and she was like, I mean, Nancy's forgotten more about glass than most people ever learn. And so to be able to be at her side, helping her make her work and to learn, I mean, I can't even describe to you how much I learned working for Nancy. And
She's so good.
so good. I mean, just honestly kind of astounding at times. And so she was a huge, continues to be a big mentor to me. Another artist, Dan Friday, who I think was on your podcast recently.
Yes.
Dan's a good
Love
friend of
Dan.
mine. Yeah. And like great singer, great glass artist, and just like has a really amazing ability to, when I look at Dan's work, I see like all of the essential details to say what he wants to say, but then like he knows what to include and what to leave out, which I think is just as important. Um, Another person who helped me a lot, especially from like the business side of things, is John Hogan was is a glass artist who I worked for a number of years, and seeing more of a, not to say his work isn't creative. He's a very creative person, but he also does like lighting, and he works with clients in a different way than maybe other glass artists work with. And so he gave me a lot of advice and direction in terms of like, the business side matters too. So he was another person who was really influential for me. And geez, just a ton of people who I worked, like we would assist other people together and who offered encouragement or direction in terms of like technique and stuff like that. So yeah, I feel like I was really lucky to be able to come to Seattle at a time where there was a lot of people who were all really committed to this like honestly competitive environment and finding helping me find my way through that.
Is that good for you, that competitive environment? Is that, a place where you can thrive when things are like that?
It's funny because I know not everybody's like this, but I'm honestly like a pretty competitive person. And so
Me
I
too.
found
You don't
yeah,
want to
and
play any games with me. It's not
you
really
know
fun.
so yeah, I mean I found the environment to be really conducive to achieving my goals of like getting better from a technical point of view and honing my creative voice to a place where I could say what I wanted to say in a way that was clear and an audience could like understand what my work was about. So the intense competition for me was wonderful. I really grew. I continue to grow in that environment, and I find it to be really rewarding, even though sometimes it can be like, you come home at the end of the day and you feel like you got hit by a car just because you're working really hard and it's been a long day. And for me, that works really well. I love it.
We'll return to Austin Stern in just a moment. This episode of Talking Out Your Glass is sponsored by Kugler. Kugler offers high-quality handcrafted colors mainly based on generation-old recipes. Kugler Clear is an upcycled modern byproduct with a reliable quality and a steady coefficient, the perfect match for Kugler colors. Bright colors and ultra-clear cullet from Kugler for the glass community. For more information, visit kuglercolors.de. This episode of Talking Out Your Glass is sponsored by the Art Alliance for Contemporary Glass. Join AACG for their next First Friday Fired Up program on Friday, December 5th from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern Time when AACG presents its annual awards. The program is free and open to the public with registration. This year, Penland School of Craft, which is receiving AACG's annual award, will give a presentation, as will the Bay Area Glass Institute, which is receiving AACG's Judith Liebman Community Organization Award. AACG Honors awardees are Amy Schwartz and Bill Gudenrath, who designed, built, and led the studio of the Corning Museum of Glass, and Rita and Larry Sybrak for their many years of dedication to and support of glass artists and the glass community. Visit AACG website at aacgglass.org for more information and the registration link. This episode of Talking Out Your Glass is sponsored by Wet Dog Glass. In business since 1996, Wet Dog Glass delivers unsurpassed value to glass studios like the Corning Museum of Glass and others around the globe. Offerings include turnkey hot glass studio equipment, studio planning consultation, and technical support. Wet Dog Glass, your studio's best friend. For more information, visit wdg-us.com. And now, we return to Austin Stern. Well, you've taught glass workshops, both nationally and internationally, in Sweden, Thailand, and throughout the United States. Talk about some of your international experiences with glass.
Yeah. So one of my favorite things about glass, honestly, is that it's this like it's a language. I think of blowing glass as a language, and we learn techniques and processes the same way that you learn like sentence structure and grammar. And through that, you express yourself. And what I've come to appreciate is that like I can go to Sweden or to Thailand or South Korea, and I don't speak those languages, but through glass, we have a way of communicating that is really special and beautiful. And places like, I mean, Seattle brings so many people from overseas to Pilchuck or to Pratt or whatever. And in the process of blowing glass together, that's how I got connected with these experience or with these opportunities. So I met some Swedish glass blowers, and that turned into, oh, hey, like this place has a residency opportunity. Would you be interested in applying? And it's like, yeah, of course. So then from there, it's like, oh, now I'm going to go blow glass in Sweden for like 2 or 3 weeks. And then meeting people there connects me to other opportunities. And so that networking through this like shared language of glass is how I got to be able to travel as much as I have and share my knowledge or just participate in blowing glass in other countries. But yeah, it's honestly my favorite thing to do is to travel for work and to share what I know and to see what other people are doing too.
It's so much fun because you create this international community of glass people that you can call upon whenever you travel and just friends worldwide that have something in common with you.
Totally. Yeah. And like, I grew up with a fairly like I don't want to say fragmented, but my everybody in my family is like extremely autonomous and very independent, and I like that. And I also have come to really cherish this like glass family that I have because exactly to your point, like I feel like I can go almost anywhere in the world and have somebody that I have a lot in common with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great thing.
I feel really lucky, honestly.
Me too. Your little monsters are seemingly innocent creatures that examine visceral emotions such as comfort, anxiety, and even fear. When and why did you begin the series?
So I started making the little monsters in 2015, and the that was the win. And I think I still have the very first little monster that I made. That one's in the personal collection. But I made the first one at Pilchuck. I signed up for Nancy Callen's class, and that was how her and I first met and got then later established like a working relationship where I was assisting her. Um, but I wanted to make these pieces because I was really struggling with my mental health at that time. The being, only 2 years into the Seattle scene and still feeling like I wasn't where I wanted to be. I wasn't making stuff that I wanted to make. I was struggling financially, and I was just really stressed. It's like I said, it's really competitive. It was kind of a pressure cooker, and at the time, I felt like I just wasn't really like grounded the way that I wanted to be. And I know that that's not uncommon. Like other people have the same anxieties and
Right.
fears that I have. And so I thought, oh, this is something that I should be making art about. And I found one day I was like out at some mall or something, and I saw these little, I think that they were called Damn It dolls, and it's kind of like a stress ball, but like they were shaped like people, and they were made with these really ugly like paisley fabrics and just really bright and like distinct looking things. And I really liked the way that they stood out and made something that's normally kind of like maybe you're not supposed to talk about or kind of sad, a little bit more humorous. And that idea really appealed to me because one of my favorite authors is Kurt Vonnegut, and he has like he brings a sense of humor to similarly heavy subjects. And so these things started kind of cooking in my head of like, well, what can I do that's similar but different and like tied to my own experiences that I'm having about feeling stressed about money or stressed about social situations. I used to be like a really, really shy person, and I was really like introverted, and it was difficult for me to make friends or feel like I fit in, And
Yes,
so,
I
yeah.
do know.
And it's funny because one of the things that I found in making this work and sharing these things that are quite personal and vulnerable is like almost everybody that I've said like, oh hey, I'm scared of X is met with like me too.
Yeah.
It's not like, what are you talking about? You're weird. It's like, so opening myself to other people has let me see a side of others that may, oh, I'm not alone. Like this isn't just a me thing. This is kind of like everybody.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's what's really motivated me to continue making these pieces for as long as I have is that we're all kind of in the same boat at the end of the day, and it doesn't get easier by not talking about it or not sharing. In fact, I think it's the opposite. I think sharing is really important and makes it easier and lighter.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, inspired by the highly saturated colors found in toys and cartoons of your childhood, you reinterpret traditional Venetian glass techniques to explore interpersonal relationships and mental health, as you just talked about. What were some of those specific early inspirations and influences?
So
What was your
so
favorite cartoon?
oh my God. There's so many, but one of like two of my favorites I would have to say was Dragon Ball Z, which is anime, very like actiony, lots of like martial arts and these sort of interesting alien characters with really cool designs and bright colors and just like very distinct visual language. Um, and then I also really love I don't even know if it's probably long since stopped being made, but Cat Dog was this cartoon on
Oh, yeah,
Nickelodeon, and it
I'm
was a
familiar.
yeah, and anything that finds a way to talk about really personal subjects from a point of view of like humor and lightheartedness really connected with me because like I said, I was really shy. I was really introverted, and I didn't really know how to like relate to other people that well. But I knew how I was feeling, and so anything that made it easier to for me to express myself really resonated with me. And as a super shy kid, I was just glued to the TV like constantly as a child. And so I really soaked in a lot of this these like bright colors in cartoons and stuff like that. And it feels really honest for I like the fact that now I have like a style where people can see it and say, oh, that's like an Austin Stern piece. But it feels really honest for me to work with a lot of color just because that's what I grew up surrounded by.
So, what were the memorable toys of your childhood?
Oh, Legos for sure. I mean, I still have like, I mean, that's a Lego bonsai tree
Oh,
behind
yeah.
me. But so any like I spent a ton of time building stuff with Legos, and I would buy like a kit and make the house or the car or whatever it was supposed to be, and then immediately take it apart and just build whatever I could think of, like spaceships and submarines. And before I found glass, I really wanted to be a marine biologist. I really love the sea and was captivated by all the different shapes that sea life comes in. And so I was always building like submarines or underwater bases, or I really wanted to like live at the bottom of the ocean for a long time. So yeah, I think that was the main one for me, was just anything that I could like build stuff with.
Well, talk a little bit about your favorite Venetian techniques and how you use those in your work.
Yeah, so Venetian style glass blowing has always appealed to me, one, because of like the technical challenge and the skill that you need to be able to execute it well. And cane particularly really just totally grabbed me. The first time I pulled cane, I was probably like 17 or something. And I just was like, wow, this is so damn hard. And as a competitive person, I saw that challenge, and you know, I saw what people who were better than me were doing with the same techniques, and said like, God, I need to get there. Like I just need to push myself further and improve. I really wanted to. And so I found it really rewarding to keep practicing and to keep failing and to keep progressing. And I also saw, like I was saying before, like, a lot of Venetian glass looks really similar to each other. And so in the process of learning how to do this stuff, I also saw like, man, if I really want to stand out, I need to put my own spin on this. Like I can't just do the best reticello because that's somebody did that like 400 years ago. And so I saw this technical challenge that really spoke to me, but I also saw this need to put my own voice in it. And so I started bending the rules a little bit and thinking like, okay, like if it's supposed to look like this, what if it looks kind of like that, but I like skip this step. I don't worry about trapping the little air bubbles in the reticello. Like then you get like the crisscross, but a little bit different. And then maybe you can add an unexpected color to that, instead of like, a lot of Italian glasses like white or black or white and black and gold, or there's like a specific color palette.
Hmm.
So I said, okay, if I do the same techniques, but if I use the colors that really resonate with me, maybe that's something that people haven't seen before, or connects with people in a different way. And once I started bending the rules, that was when it got really exciting. And I realized, oh, maybe there's kind of like no rules, and you can, as long as you're creative enough and skilled enough, you can do whatever you want. And so I've been on that journey for several years now, and I just feel like, one, it's been extremely rewarding and fun, and like there is no end. Like there are no limits, and it's simply a matter of like what you can think of, and then from there just practicing until you get it how you want it to be. So like, I've been blowing glass for almost 23 years now, and one of the things that I love so much about glass is that I just feel like there's so much left to learn still. Like I love glass today as much as I did the first time I blew glass.
I've had a lot of people say it's never easy. Do you feel that way?
It's funny because yes, I feel that way. And I also feel like the challenges don't go away, they just change.
Yeah.
So like honestly, I feel in my life like I'm like a pretty slow learner. And so like to use one example in class, like learning how to like pop a bubble consistently took me like 2.5 years. Like, oh, I struggled so hard with that. And now I can do that without thinking. But there's other things that are just as challenging that and it keeps me engaged. It keeps me excited about it. But yeah, I can't say that it's not hard. But I will say the challenges have changed.
Austin, describe and discuss your current work, Hold Fast.
Mm, that piece, I'm really proud of that piece because in 20 last year, 2024, I had this like awful separation. It was very painful. I lost I was engaged and I walked away from that. I also lost my first dog. I have never
Oh,
like we had a lot of pets growing up, but we never had dogs because when I was a kid, I was severely mauled by a dog. I had like
oh,
facial reconstruction surgery at like
wow.
5 years old. Yeah, this Dalmatian really got me good. Um, but so we never had dogs before, and saying goodbye to that dog, that was just like that was very tough for me.
That's a
Uh,
terrible combo.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a terrible combo, and so it was a really difficult year last year. Um, Letting go of a lot of things, relearning a lot of things, and the kind of light at the end of the tunnel, if you will, was this residency in Thailand, which is at BG Glass Studio, which is a place that I had worked in 2018 for the first time. So I was going through all of this really challenging personal stuff, and I was really looking forward to this residency where I could go to a country that I loved and see people who I really respect and admire and who are friends of mine and make some stuff that was like, I didn't really make a ton of art last year. And when I got there, I was going through all these things and all this stuff was like bubbling up, as it does when you're processing a lot of loss. And this piece kind of formulated in my head of like, I'm going through all of this shit and it's just so sorry, I don't know if I can swear.
You can.
Oh, sweet. I'm going through all this shit and and it just seemed like every day was kind of this like insurmountable challenge, but I made it through every day. And I learned so much about my own like personal resilience and also how many people I had in my corner who were willing to help me through this stuff. Like it's kind of a unifying theme in the work that I make where it's like no matter how shitty it feels or how isolated it might seem sometimes, like we're not alone. And so that piece kind of came to as like a capstone to the residency, as like a piece that symbolized that experience for me of like the three characters on top are like the fear, the anxiety, the uncertainty, the loss, and then the little silver ball is like the hope and the friendship and the love
Mm.
that even in the face of all that loss is still there and continues to be there. So I was really happy to be able to make that there and also just to sort of like process a lot of stuff that was going on in a personal space through making that piece. And I've found, a lot of times in life when things are difficult for me, like blowing glass can be really grounding and really cathartic and really like help me. Because I mean, that's the place where I feel most at home is in the hot shop. Like that's been an anchor of my life. And so to be able to be in a place that was very comfortable and very like safe and to make something like that helped me a lot just on a personal level and then to be able to have this finished piece that I can share with others and hopefully they see some of that message in the work um just means a lot to me.
Tell us a bit about Amethyst Daydreamer.
Yeah. So in this series of work there's kind of like a few, maybe you could say like recurring designs or recurring themes. But the Daydreamer pieces with like the little kind of lantern on top is kind
Love
of meant to
those.
represent like my mind wanders all the time. Like I'm always off in space thinking about something or other. And and that kind of is representative of that feeling of like, oh, I've got this goal or this idea or this thing that I'm kind of like just wondering about or wanting to accomplish. Like I'm a very like goal driven person. It really helps me to have like something to work towards. And so those pieces, Amethyst Daydreamer, and there's a few other ones that are in that same kind of genre. It's like it's meant to kind of try to convey that feeling of like, oh, there's this thing that's on my mind and I'm really hoping for, reaching for, and and whether I achieve that thing or not maybe matters a little bit less than just the feeling of like having something to be striving towards. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, do your designs typically come about spontaneously, or do you do drawings before you go into the studio?
Oh, I draw a lot. Actually, I one thing, and it kind of came about because blowing glass is so expensive, and I realized like, oh man, I'm spending, between 1,000 and 1,600 bucks just to blow glass for one day. Like for me, I can't do that and come into the studio without a plan and feel good about it. So when I blow glass, it's actually like extremely structured and like down to the minute I have a plan for like what's happening and when. I draw a lot. I these days I typically work with two people, my two very good friends of mine, Eric Peterson and Astrid Hunter, who are wonderful glass artists in their own right, but also like dear friends of mine who care a lot about helping me realize my goals. And so I learned um, the best way to get the most out of my day and the most out of my team is to have clear drawings and clear plans so I can say, oh, hey, like whether it's, we're starting this piece at this time or like in the midst of this piece, these are the next few steps that are happening. And I can show them on the drawing like what we're doing and where and how. It really helps me get the most out of my day. And it also helps me to make work that I'm really proud of when it comes out of the annealer.
What was the inspiration for your work, Heartstone?
Hearthstone came about because of, I was talking about how last year was a tough one for me and the weight of, I was in this relationship that ended and there were so many different components to why that happened. And one of the things that I had to confront was my own role in that and recognizing patterns in my own life that weren't serving me, that didn't serve my relationship, and that I had to change, to process those things, to take accountability for those things, and to improve myself. And that was a really heavy weight to, because it's easy to blame somebody else for something. Like
Yeah.
then it's not on you, and then you're absolved of responsibility. But that isn't really how life works. And so making that piece was in the same way that a lot of my work is kind of comes from my own personal feelings and experiences was kind of representative of that process of like, I have this thing that comes from within that needs to be worked on. And so that's kind of like how that feels to me of like, oh, this isn't somebody else. This is me. Like that's part of this situation. And so being honest with myself and being a little bit brave and recognizing that it has to come from me. I just wanted to make something that kind of spoke to that.
Yeah. Well, I follow you on Instagram and I noticed that you're actually making some rugs based on some of your designs, like floor rugs. I thought, how cool. I want one of those.
Yeah. So those were really fun because I worked with a guy in Portland who fabricated those rugs, and we looked at photos of my like the portfolio photos of my work, and we looked at those together and kind of interpreted the designs of the glass to fit into the a different process, a different medium. And that's something that I love blowing glass. I love making things out of glass, and I also am always looking for ways to get outside of that box because at the end of the day, as much as I love glass, I also, I think of myself as an artist, and I don't necessarily only want to make glass stuff. So so I try to get out of glass and into other things and collaborate with people because I think one, it's fun and rewarding creatively, and two, like somebody who doesn't blow glass doesn't look at glass the same way as you and I might. And I found that that can lead to some really interesting ideas that maybe I'm just too caught up or in the process or the rules of glass to have seen on my own. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
think in the same way when I blow glass, I really lean on my team to help me see things because like, there's only so much one person can focus on at a time. So I really believe like having more eyes on something leads to better creative results than just like one person having like total control.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, so where can the rugs be purchased somewhere?
Yeah, we did it was a really limited run. We made four and I have one left in my studio. But I think, I know that it would be possible to make more. We just haven't really talked about it. So there's only one
Yeah.
left, and
Wow.
maybe in the future there'll be some more released because people did seem to be into them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will say on a personal note that the process of getting through last year, somehow my creative side remained like the most dormant up until maybe the last several months where I really started to feel like myself again as an artist.
Yeah.
And so I've been making a lot of new stuff, and I'm really excited about that because yeah, because for a while it just felt like I needed to focus on other things more. Um but yeah, we're back.
Yay.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you about 2019. You were selected as one of 100 artists to be included in New Glass Review, a global survey of contemporary glass from the Corning Museum of Glass. Talk about your selected piece for that publication.
Oh my God. Yeah. New Glass Now was huge. That was a major turning point in my career, honestly. I applied because when I was in college, I had a professor, an engraving professor. Interestingly, Emporia State I think is still the only school in the country where you can get a BFA in metal engraving. So they have this cool engraving program. And in any case, the teacher was really, really clear on like one part of your practice as an artist has to be applying for stuff. You're going to get rejected by a lot of things, and rejection is not a reflection of your artistic merit, but you won't get anything you don't apply for. So I saw the show and it seemed like a huge opportunity, and I honestly wasn't really sure what my odds would be, but I submitted three pieces for the show and all three of them were selected. So I
Wow.
had yeah, I was
Congratulations.
thank you. I was extremely pleased to get that email. And I remember I was actually in Thailand when I got the acceptance thing because yeah, I was in the early morning hotel Bangkok scene. Anyway, so they
Do
selected.
they tell you why, like your work was selected because or for its?
That's a really good question. Let me see if I can remember. They did, so there was a panel of jurors, and what they did, if I remember right, was they indicated which of the five jurors um basically said yes to your work. And I think four out of five people thought that my stuff should be in the show, which was nice that made me feel good. Excuse me. And the the why, if I remember right, they said that the work really represented like where American glass was at the time,
Hmm, that's
which
awesome.
was very humbling.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I've been really dedicated my whole life to like process and technique and also like creative expression. So recognition of that was very humbling for sure. And the three pieces that they chose were the titles of those pieces are Hug to Death, Creeps, and All Wound Up. And at the end of that show, The Corning Museum of Glass actually purchased two of those pieces for their permanent collection,
Wow.
which was my first museum acquisition. And to
That's a pretty
be
good one.
That's a pretty damn good
That's a
one.
pretty good place to start.
I I I still honestly kind of can't believe it, and it just feels great to be recognized by an institution as respectable as Corning.
Yeah.
And to know that my work is now like sits alongside some of the people who I've admired my whole life. Yeah, deeply humbling. But but also I'm really proud of those pieces, and I feel like they represent the Little Monsters series very, very well. And for anybody who's interested, you can see either at the museum itself or on their like online catalog what those pieces look like. But but yeah, I think the two that they selected really, really represent what that series is supposed to be about, like very, very well. Um, but so being in the show itself was great because I was I was exhibiting my work, like I said, with people who I'd looked up to my whole life, and the show itself got a ton of attention because Corning did a really great job putting the exhibition together. The exhibition was at the museum for a time, and then it eventually traveled to the Smithsonian, the Renwick Gallery of the Smithsonian Museum, and then the Toyama Glass Museum in Japan. And so the kind of net effect of that was that a ton of people saw my work who might not have seen it otherwise.
Yeah.
And so it brought a ton of visibility to my practice and a lot of interested collectors. And now when I look back, I think of like, before New Glass Now and after New Glass Now. And and yeah, to be able to exhibit my work at that level just opened a lot of doors for me, and it made it possible for me to dive deeper into my practice, to take, you know, to shift away from assisting artists and working as kind of one of the hired guns of Seattle to being like an independent artist. And so that I really can't understate how much that changed my life in terms of what I was able to do and like the dreams that I was able to realize by being, you know, basically just like financially stable enough to be able to really commit to my own practice.
The Corning Museum of Glass has been important to you in other ways because in 2022 you did a residency there. Talk about what you focused on or accomplished during the residency.
Yeah, yeah, that residency was huge. I'll start by saying like one, you're absolutely right. The Corning Museum of Glass has been a tremendous supporter of mine. They've given me a ton of opportunities, a ton of trust and respect as an artist. I love Corning and I have nothing but good things to say about them. They're humongous supporters of my own practice personally, but also just like a kind of a really important institution in the glass community more generally. And so to have applied for that residency, again, got to apply for stuff. And I really wasn't sure what my odds would be, but they picked me, and I had a whole month to just do whatever I wanted, which was and continues to be a level of artistic freedom that I've never had before, or really like since. I mean, I think a lot of glass artists would agree that having just like continuous time to devote to your practice is one of the most important things to refining your voice, to developing new work. Um, that kind of momentum that you get from being able to go in and day out and just keep pushing is so much more productive and so much different than blowing glass for yourself like once or twice a month, which is what my practice normally looks like. If I blow glass for myself two times a week, that's like a lot. So I went into this residency with the goal of exploring, of trying new things, and I didn't want to make monsters. I wanted to just play. And so I came in with ideas for several different series. And some of those things I made, and in the process of making them, I learned that I didn't really like I got what I wanted. I didn't need to explore further. And other things, I walked away with like, oh, this is a really good idea for something that I'll continue to develop. One of those series was I'm calling it Dear Frog, My Frog, I Love You. And this series is about my mom who passed away in 2020. And after my mom died, I found her travel journals. So my mom had dementia at the end of her life, and we were really fortunate to grow up with her telling us all these stories about her travels because she had been all over the world, Southeast Asia, the Middle East, Europe, everywhere. My mom was an incredible woman, very brave, very smart, and very outgoing. So after she passed, I found these journals that she had kept while she was traveling. So for me, as her son, it was really beautiful to be able to like read these stories, and also kind of funny because there were definitely some details that she left out when she was telling her kids about these things. Like the hash dealer in Afghanistan did not come up when I was 10 years old. But but so I found these things and these stories that I was able to reconnect with my mom in a way that hadn't been possible at the end of her life because she forgot all this stuff. And as I read these journals and was feeling all of these emotions about, wow, my mom was so amazing. I decided I really needed to make something about it. And so what I did was I scanned the journals, put them onto Razist, and sandblasted the text into glass. And into that sandblasted surface, I put some enamel paint and was able to pick those shards of text up and make these little kind of like turtle-like sculptures that they're meant to be, fragments of her memories, of her experiences.
Mm.
And the fragmentation sort of speaks to the dementia and the fact that those things for her became a lot harder to grasp. But also, as somebody who grew up hearing these stories, like I'm able to carry my mom's memories on in the absence of her ability to do so. So it felt to me like making a sort of, I don't like the word permanent, but a memorial to her experiences and like proof that she was here, that she did the things that she said she did, and that, this awful disease couldn't couldn't really take it away from her in the way that it felt like at the time.
Yeah.
And so tying that back to the residency, having that time and that freedom and the support from Corning to explore this really personal idea that also felt really important for me to make was just huge. I don't think I would have felt comfortable like economically or um to be able to do that just on my own time at Pratt. Like I that really felt like the right place and the right time to be doing that.
Yeah.
And we were able also to melt neodymium glass, the color changing glass to kind of speak as a metaphorical nod to the like subjectivity of experience and perception and how these stories, I keep these memories for my mom, but they're secondhand. Like I know what she told me and I know what she wrote down, but I didn't actually go, talk to the hash dealer in Afghanistan. That wasn't me. So those pieces feel really special to me because I love my mom, but they also feel like artistically very rewarding because I feel, it's hard to boil down such a big concept into something that's clear to look at as the viewer of the artwork, the person who doesn't know all this stuff, all this context. So I felt like it was really successful, and I also just, again, I'm really glad that I had the opportunity to explore that.
You were also an artist in residence at Bangkok Glass Company, Bangkok, Thailand in 2024. How did that come about and describe that experience?
Yeah, so the residency at BG uh came about because in 2018 I went there and I taught a month-long workshop at that studio. So that's the first art glass studio in Thailand, and it's a in a way that's kind of similar to Corning. BG is an industrial glass company, so they have a corporate component where they make container glass like bottles and jars and stuff. And I think it was in 2017 that they decided that they wanted to also build like a hot shop, a conventional hot shop that like you or I would recognize as a place to make glass art. And in the development of that, they realized that they needed to bring in people to teach their team how to blow glass. And so they reached out to me after finding my work on Instagram and said, "Hey, do you like this is who we are, this is what we do, and we'd really love for you to come teach us some of what you know." And the initial email, honestly, I was kind of like, this seems like a scam, but 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 they in their pitch they mentioned some other American glass artists, Jeremy Popelka and Stephanie Trenchard, and I reached out to them. I said, hey, this like, what do you guys think of this? And they had just been there, and they said, oh, it's amazing. Like, go. If they want you to be there, you should be there. And it was a wonderful experience. So the workshop went great. The people that work at BG are wonderful people, very talented artists. And in the process of that workshop, we became friends. And then later they invited me to be one of their resident artists, which is what I did in 2024. And like I mentioned earlier, that was kind of the light at the end of the tunnel of a dark year for me. So so going there and spending a month blowing glass with my friends in Thailand was really sweet. And I made some monsters, I made some new stuff, I made um some great memories, and I ate a lot of really great food. Blowing glass in Thailand is extremely hot. It's every time every single day was like a three t-shirt day, but we had a lot of fun, and I made a lot of cool stuff, including like we earlier spoke about, the piece Hold Fast.
And I know your work has been exhibited in Bangkok and Singapore. I'm wondering if the little monsters were part of what's on view and if the kind of anxieties represented by that series is understood internationally.
Yeah, so the in Singapore and in Bangkok and Hong Kong as well, the monsters have been shown in all those places, and I think one of the things that continues to motivate me to make that work is that it seems to connect with everybody in a way. Like I I really love having work that is like multi-layered. Like a glassblower can look at my work and see the process and the technique and the skill there and appreciate that. But somebody who's never blown glass and doesn't know anything about it can look at the work that I make and see like a character who's burdened by like some kind of stress or anxiety and empathize with that. I think the creating a moment of empathy in the work that I make, that's like the most important part to me. And and I feel really fortunate that that seems to be understood by the people who see my work, no matter what culture they're from. And and so I think that that is what has made it possible for my work to go overseas and be exhibited and appreciated by people, is that in a way, I mean, those feelings are universal. Like I think everybody feels stress or anxious anxiety about something somehow. And and I think that yeah, that's what's made it possible to have a broad audience like that, is that people connect with that.
Yeah. It's almost like it taps into kind of a childlike approach to those things too, because of the forms that they're fun and they're kind of, like you said, almost like a ugly doll or a stuffed animal of some kind. So I think
Yeah.
it taps into your sort of like childlike quality inside too.
Yeah, and that I appreciate you saying that, because that like that sort of cuteness and that playfulness, the maybe like innocence of it is very much on purpose. That's the goal, is to take something that, if I came and sat down and I was like, Sean, look, I'm real stressed about something. It's like that's maybe not a conversation everybody wants to have. But if you can put maybe a layer or two of humor or maybe fun somehow between that feeling and the conversation that I want to have about that feeling, I think it makes it a lot more approachable and a lot less like intimidating to go to a place where ultimately I think it's possible to find like a deep connection and shared understanding of like what our human experience is like.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, what's coming up for you in 2026, Austin?
So 2026, I'm really excited because I have a workshop at Corning that I'm teaching at the studio. So I have a week-long class there where we'll be doing cane techniques with a non-traditional spin. That's something that I think is really it's fun to teach, and I think it's also important in the broader like progression of the glass movement to like, stay rooted in like a high degree of like technical proficiency, but also like add to the dialogue. Like, I don't necessarily think it's that interesting to go and teach people how to make perfect twisty cane because people have been making perfect twisty cane for hundreds of years. Um, but I do think it's possible to expand on that and to add something newer and fresher and maybe more relevant to like what 2025, 2026 is looking and feeling like. So when I teach, I will pretty much always encourage people to like, learn the rules and then bend the rules. And so I'm looking forward to that workshop. I also have an exhibition coming up in Germany that is going to be a new experience for me. It's a dual exhibition with a German painter who does these crazy like surrealist paintings. He uses AI in some way to like come up with what he's doing. And so this gallery approached me to see if I was interested in working with somebody in a dual exhibition format. So I said, hell yeah. Because again, I really like to get, the glass world is great, but I also like to get outside the glass world. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that comes together. Um, and I'm continuing to develop these new sculptures that I've been calling the Fat Boys, which are talking about our relationships with our bodies. I was a really heavy kid for a lot of my life, and I've made a lot of like positive changes in my life to lose weight and become more healthy. But I also still have like a lot of body dysmorphia. And in the fitness journey that I've been on, I've lost like almost 50 or 60 pounds, and I've learned a lot about what it actually is to be healthy. Like skinny and healthy aren't the same thing. A lot of the narratives that I subscribe to about what I should look like or what I should be doing to be healthy have changed as I've seen, other people on their own health journeys. And so this series of work is kind of touching on that and touching on, a subject that I think is a little bit maybe taboo of just like how men relate to that idea of like what we're supposed to look like and what our bodies should and shouldn't be and how we feel comfortable in our own skin.
Mm.
So that's a new series that's coming along, and I'm really excited about how that's been developing because I've pared back a lot of the techniques that I use and am going in maybe a little bit more of a conceptual direction, I would say. I'm not really sure, but I think that kind of stuff is maybe more for viewers to determine than like I can say whatever I want, but it's really what people see.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, so those are some things that are coming up next year for me that I'm pretty pumped about.
What is the name of the gallery, the German gallery?
Oh shoot, Sean, I'm so sorry. It is not in my brain right now.
That's okay.
I
I'll look it up and I'll
oh yeah,
mention it at
I
the
can
beginning.
email it to you.
Do you
But
know the dates of your Corning workshop?
yeah, the Corning workshop is the last week of August next year,
Okay.
next summer.
Okay.
Um, which is a great time to be in Corning. It's weather's going to be great. It hopefully won't be too hot, but I'm used to being hot. Standing in front of a 2,000-degree furnace does that to
Yeah.
you.
So, Your Little Monsters is a body of work where cartoon like creatures interact with physical manifestations of their own anxieties. How do you suspect your work will evolve? Has this last decade reflected new or more extreme ways we're feeling stress culturally or as a society? Seems like you have endless material for new pieces and new ideas.
Yeah, I mean, maybe funny is not the right word, but it sure doesn't seem like there's less stuff to be stressed or scared about.
No.
That's for sure. And so, again, I think part of what has kept me interested in continuing to make that work for as long as I have is that people keep resonating with it. And like it's relevant still that things are scary and like, God, I mean, just the state of the world itself is terrifying in a lot of ways. And the fact that we've never been more connected to every little awful thing that's happening doesn't make that easier to cope with. And so I think what I've noticed is that people that the kind of like ambient stress level just keeps going up. And it makes me worried, and it also makes me feel like it's more important than ever to remember that connectedness goes both ways, that we can be more keyed into the disasters that unfold every day, and also more keyed into ways of supporting each other and ways of helping each other. And that, constantly being bombarded by bad news can make you shut it all out, but it's really as a way of like self-preservation, which totally makes sense. But it's also really important to realize that that connectedness is also an opportunity every day to like give to other people and to be there for other people, and that we can, I believe, manage these things together and get things going in a direction that is reduces suffering, increases connectedness and mutual support, and ultimately makes the world a better place, I think.
Thanks for tuning in to Talking Out Your Glass. This episode of Talking Out Your Glass is sponsored by Kugler. Kugler offers high-quality, handcrafted colors mainly based on generation-old recipes. Kugler Clear is an upcycled modern byproduct with a reliable quality and a steady coefficient, the perfect match for Kugler colors. Bright colors and ultra-clear cullet from Kugler for the glass community. For more information, visit kuglercolors.de. This episode of Talking Out Your Glass is sponsored by the Art Alliance for Contemporary Glass. Join AACG for their next First Friday Fired Up program on Friday, December 5th from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern Time, when AACG presents its annual awards. The program is free and open to the public with registration. This year, Penland School of Craft, which is receiving AACG's annual award, will give a presentation, as will the Bay Area Glass Institute, which is receiving AACG's Judith Liebman Community Organization Award. AACG Honors awardees are Amy Schwartz and Bill Gudenrath, who designed, built, and led the studio of the Corning Museum of Glass, and Rita and Larry Sybrack for their many years of dedication to and support of glass artists and the glass community. Visit AACG website at aacgglass.org for more information and the registration link. This episode of Talking Out Your Glass is sponsored by Wet Dog Glass. In business since 1996, Wet Dog Glass delivers unsurpassed value to glass studios like the Corning Museum of Glass and others around the globe. Offerings include turnkey hot glass studio equipment, studio planning consultation, and technical support. Wet Dog Glass, your studio's best friend. For more information, visit wdg-us.com. If you're watching or listening on this YouTube channel, please subscribe and share with your other glass-loving friends for more great episodes and conversations with glass artists worldwide. Until next time, stay glassy.